Have you ever wanted to plant a vegetable garden? Well, then listen close and get ready to take some notes because we've got a lot of information that will really help you. Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to another edition of the Shades of Green Show. I'm very pleased to have a vegetable expert, besides myself, here with us today. Jeff Raska is joining us. And Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then let's just dive into your presentation.
I will do that. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity to come visit with y'all today. My name is Jeff Raska. I am the horticultural program director for Texas A&M Agricultural Extension here in Dallas County. And I specialize in urban horticulture, which encompasses vegetable gardening, small farm applications, backyard chickens, fruit and vineyards and such. So I have a rounded background on subject matter, so I kind of teach all of urban horticulture. And today we're going to be visiting a little bit on vegetable gardening. I'm going to be a very simple, short, quick course on vegetable gardening, just to hit the high points because we're going to do a short presentation. I took this from a 4-hour course I teach for the A&M, and I've simplified it down to just a few slides and try to get you I want to hit the high points of this. And I think I could discuss with Tim. We'll have a little Q&A from him if he has any questions afterwards. So let's get rolling. Veggies 101. Vegetables, we're going to talk about sun, soil, water, and fertilization. And number one is vegetables need direct sunlight. All veggies need direct sunlight, at least 8 hours. If you're doing your fruiting vegetables, your tomatoes, your peppers, your melons, more the better. They would do a full sun regimen all day long, even the hottest sun they take. And they need it to develop fruit fully. So we need to put them in a full sun location. And that's direct sunlight. I've been to schools and things in different places. I worked with school gardens for a long, long time. And they put things under trees and they have light under trees, but that's not what I mean. I mean direct sunlight for the fruit. So you got to be in full sun. So put it in a place in your property in your backyard with full sun. Leafy greens will take a little less sun at times, but they still need at least 8 hours. So be sure and give them enough sunlight. They need to be close to a water source because vegetables need a consistent supply of water to produce fruit properly. And to get enough sugars in your fruit and get enough acids in your fruit to get that good flavor you want, that good quality you want in your fruit. This does not mean they want to sit in water. They need to be in a well-drained area because they need immediate drainage when the water gets into the soils. But it does mean that they need a consistent supply. That means we want to keep them moist throughout their growing season to make sure they have ample water in the ground to be able to pull the nutrients up into their leaves and be able to make the food they need to produce your fruit. So be sure that you've got a good supply of water to them and be sure that you don't let them dry out. It's very important. We do not want our fruits and vegetables to dry out. In fruits, I'm really talking about tomatoes and peppers and onions or tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, things like that. Anything with the seed inside we consider a fruit. So anything that you've got a seed inside of it is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about fruit. Weed-free, vegetable plants do not compete well with weeds. Weeds take the major part of the nutrition of vegetable plants, so they will not be able to compete. So you need to put them in weed-free beds. I'm going to talk about different bed preps and easier ways to manage weeds in your beds shortly. So we'll get to that slide here in a minute. But basically, they got to stay weed-free. Keep them clean, keep the beds clean, keep them weed-free. Fertilization needs to be in place. We cannot at A&M, y'all cannot be able to produce a proper amount of fruit, a proper amount of good nutrient-rich greens without fertilization with the plant. I'm very organic in my practices and the things I do across the board, but we still have to fertilize and organic fertilization. I'm going to talk about that here in a second, briefly hit on that. So got to have a fertilization plan in place. If you want to produce good quality vegetables, good quality greens, you need to fertilize. You're going to have to do it on a consistent basis, and I'll talk about that in a second. I always suggest to new people who are just starting out, start with a couple of small raised beds, and I'll show you a raised bed here in a minute. Start slow, build a couple of raised beds, see if this fits into your family. Don't go invest a lot of money into this process until you really know that you're going to be willing to put the time in to maintain the plants, to be able to make sure they're watered, fertilized, weed-free, to produce what you want to produce at the end of the season. Because if you just let them go and you just put them out there and forget them, they're not going to do very well. You're going to waste money. So don't waste money on it. Let Tim, let the group help you get through this process, but start slow. A couple of raised beds, a couple of containers, something like that to start, and then you'll see if this is going to fit into your family lifestyle. Put them close to the house because you need to monitor them consistently. You need to really look at your vegetable garden every day. Some of the insects we have that get to us, that get to our vegetables, basically come out overnight. One day they'll be perfectly fine. The next day you're going to come out, you're going to have 1,000 harlequin beetles all over your plants with little holes all in it, or little cigar beetles and things like that that are going to be out there and going to peck little holes in your plants, or you're going to see things eating your plants and things like that, or just caterpillars, things like that. So be able to monitor and put them close to your house. Be sure you understand your space limitations on what you want to grow. If I build a 4x4 bed, I'm not going to be real successful in a 4x4 bed with watermelons. If I love watermelons, you're going to have to give them the space to grow. Watermelons need about 25, 30 square foot to produce 6 to 8 melons. So you're going to have to give them some space to grow. If I'm starting out, start out with some small. Start out with a few tomatoes, a few peppers, a few onions, things that typical like onions and some of the greens that we put into the ground. If we put them as transplants, it's just something that we place in the ground, and we just need to get them bigger. We're not starting from seed. We're not letting them germinate in the ground. Those are the easiest ways to start. So start with something small. Start with a tomato transplant. Put it in the ground, and all you need to do is maintain it, water it, fertilize it, keep the weeds away until it gets to be a bigger plant and it'll start producing fruit. So basically know your limitations, but let's don't go big time with a lot of melons and a lot of things that aren't going to fit into your space. You're not going to be successful. The plant's not going to be healthy, and you're not going to get the fruit you require out of that. This is the extraordinarily important part, is prepare your soil correctly to get your garden on a stable foundation. What I understand, Tim had told me that he's there. You guys are fixing to do, Shades of Green's fixing to do a soil prep or a bed prep type video will be the next out. So I'm not going to go too much into that, but it's extremely important to understand you've got to get good soil. Soil has to be right to produce these fruits and vegetables for them to be able to absorb the nutrients they need to absorb. Vegetable preparations, traditional in-ground bed is at the bottom. That's called a swell and terrace system. It's the medieval system that we basically are just working in some compost into the existing soil. Most of us are dealing with a clay base. So basically I don't do this anymore. Even on the small 1 to 2 acre urban farms that we're hoping to develop, we don't do this kind of in-ground anymore. We're going more of the raised beds and raised terracing systems. This is a good terrace system that you can do in your in-ground bed. So you've got this one's 12 by 6 or 12 by 20. Looking at this one's one we did over at one of our demo gardens. What we did was basically cover that whole area with some compost, worked it in, and you see how we built raised terraced beds, left inside walkways beside it. Inside those walkways, we're going to put in mulch, really heavy layer of a good walking mulch, which is a heavy shredded mulch to help feed the soil, to help keep the weeds down, and then we'll just plant on top of the terraces. Now, we don't till anymore. I'm a no-till. All of our preps are no-till. We don't till anymore. We work their this could be worked into the soil with a tiller at one time. If you need to till it in, if you can't work it into your soil with a fork or with a spade, till this in, but we don't go back and re-till this again. We're going to maintain our soil structure, and we're going to also maintain our microbial activities in the soil. I'm not going to get much into that, but it's important to keep this thing static, to keep our microbes in the soil. That's terraced. Sheet mulch lasagna gardening, I'm going to just Google that because that's a different way to do it. I've done a lot of beds this way for years and years. It's not a new concept. It works extremely well on clay soils, on heavy compacted areas. And you can basically, you're building a bed up on top of the old existing soil bed. So it can be in a corner of a yard. It could be anywhere you want to put it, but it needs to get in full sun. But that's a good way to go. But look at sheet mulch, look at lasagna gardening, and just Google that one to kind of get some more information. Raised bed, that's the top right-hand corner. That's actually mine at my home in Crandall, and that is my garden, my kitchen garden. I grow a lot of things out of the kitchen garden just for us. And those are just very typical raised beds, 4 by 8. If you're building a raised bed, you can make it as long as you want to, but just don't go any wider than 4 foot. That way we can work the beds from either side. We're not stepping into the bed. That's very important because we do not want to compact the soil. We want to keep the soil living, and we want to keep it alluvial. We want to keep it tilty or soft and fluffy. So we don't want to step on the beds. All I really do to these beds basically is after I pull the crop, I'll go back in and put compost on top and just let that compost layer work its way into the soil. I will not go fork this or turn this over ever again. I'm just going to work it from top down. Remember, soil in nature is built from the top down, not from the bottom up. So think about a forested area, all the leaves drop, and that's how they build their soil. This is how we're going to keep our soil healthy and alive and maintain a soil bed, a good soil microbial bed. That's a typical raised beds. Container gardens could be any kind of container large enough to hold the plant you want to get. If you've got a 10-gallon pot or something like that, that could do a tomato very easily. But you want to make sure you get a big enough container for what you want to grow. Hydroponics, aquaponics is one it's just growing in a water medium, not one typically that I would ever suggest a homeowner. A lot of variants are in that one as far as water chemistry. This is amending. Compost can go on top of the soil or in the soil. And I'm going to give a real short course on this one that I give to the students. Shredded mulch goes on top. You do not put shredded mulch into the garden soils itself. It's going to take nitrogen. It's going to take nutrients to break down. So keep that on top. Compost in the soil, mulch on top of the soil. I use them both. I combine them both. It's as simple as that to make a good soil bed. You don't have to go off, you don't have to go all these other types of mulches. There are different types of compost, like mushroom compost and different things like that. I like a wooded compost because it carries more of the complete package of nutrient values that I want into the soils. So I just use a straight, simple wood compost, and then I'll come back in with the shredded mulch on top on some of the beds themselves. Expanded shell, if you're going to work into there and you're going to make your beds in the clay soil, expanded shell will help break the clay soil. It'll help hold a little moisture. You can get it you can go and get it at the store. But it's one of the things that I can put into the soil as a clay buster. I just don't do much into clay anymore, and I don't suggest doing much into clay anymore. I'm more along the lines of doing a container or doing a raised bed to start with to get you started. Topsoil is just basically a good loamy topsoils out there. It does have places in the garden, but it's not going to carry nutrient value to compost. So it's not a replacement for compost. So just make sure you know where your soil is supposed to be in the garden and get the proper soil. You can go to Shades of Green, and they will certainly help you with the soils. They will help you with that. This is when I'm talking about compost and mulch real quick. That is finished compost. When a compost goes to a finish, it's non-discernible. I don't see a lot of sticks. I don't see a lot of leaf in this anymore. It's beautiful. It smells fresh. It smells earthy. It is ready to give nutrients back to the soil. It is not going to be taking them from the soil. If I mix this good shredded mulch, and this is a great shredded mulch, but if I mix that into the soil to break down into that, it's going to take nitrogen from the soil. And where does that nitrogen come from? It's going to come from the plants. So I do not want this mixed into the soil. I want that as my top dressing in my landscape beds and my gardens, around the fruit trees, whatever you're going to put out. I want that as the top dressing. I want that to be mixed into the soil. That's a beautiful finished compost. You could make your own, but if you're starting out new, this is not the first concept I do. I don't want a person to go out there or a family to go out there and think about all these concepts to do them all at one time. Start with a raised bed. Grow a little bit of vegetables, be successful, and then you can start doing some of your own composting and things like that, because you're really not going to have this. Get this at the stores, get this up there at the store, let them help you with what to use in your beds and get your beds prepped properly. Get a soil test. We always suggest soil tests. This is from A&M. This is one of our soil tests that you can do that. It's available online. You just go to A&M, Texas A&M Ag Extension online soil testing. It will show you how to test it. This is highly recommended for if you're going to do an in-ground beds, because we need a starting place for the soil that you're going to do the in-ground, and you're going to mix your existing soil with some compost. We need a good starting place for this to see where you're at, to see what the nutrients are going to hold. Sometimes if you got clay soils and it's just been yards, and you've fertilized it over the years, or it's been an area with just weeded area, it'll have a lot of phosphorus and potassium already in the soil that's captured in the soil. We won't need to add that. So this will help us really direct what fertilizers you need for your particular area, where you're just not free fertilizing and waste input. Our job at A&M is to limit inputs completely. It's to steward the soil, it's to steward the environment, absolutely, with our gardens, with our farms, with whatever we're doing now. But it's also to lessen inputs, not waste inputs. Wasting fertilizations into your soils and letting that fertilizer go into our systems, into our water systems, down the gullies, into the drains, into our water systems is a complete no-no. That's hitting it on different factors, to where we're not only messing with the environment, we're also wasting money on this. So you don't have to waste money. You can go to the garden center, let the guys help you, let them help you with what you need to do with your soil testing. This is just the raised bed. This is sheet mulching, where you've actually put a sheet of cardboard down, and you're actually building soil on top of it in different layers. This is the first layer. We did this on all the demo gardens at my Road and Bridge one, all the demo gardens at the farm out there, we did all the front demo gardens or sheet mulch. Good way to go, and it works very well. And over time, as this breaks down, it builds the soil underneath it. You do not have to remove the grass in this application. The cardboard is going to kill the grass, and that grass is going to act as part of our nutritional palette for the microbes that are still in there and still in the soil working, that have already been there. So it's a good way to go. Here's a simple raised bed: wooden, stone, brick. You just want to make sure that it doesn't have any kind of chemicals within it. There's plastic, there's kits. Some of those kits that they sell at the nursery are great little kits to start with and get you started. So you'll know really if you're not much of the carpentry, go get a kit, start with the kit. But it needs to be at least a foot deep. That's what we want, at least a foot deep. And again, 4 foot wide. These are 4x8s. Build them. We're going to irrigate it. I'll talk about that in a second. But you see how we laid the layer of cardboard over the grass? So I don't kill the grass. I use all the grass and I use all this that's already there as part of my nutrition. This will die out, and this will it's all of its nutrition. It's valued. It's collected. It will go right back into the soil to help keep the soil going. And then this will build me a rich bed. And I use a prepared mix for this. Very simple to do. The garden center has your prepared mixes for you for that. Container gardens can be any container that, again, doesn't have any kind of chemical releases into it. So you can use all kinds of containers, from old, these are nursery pots that trees have been in, to raised, to you can use cattle troughs. You can do all kinds of things. Just that's limited the imagination. The important thing about container gardening is get the container size for what I'm going to grow. I know a tomato plant, if I get an indeterminate tomato plant, it's going to grow 5 foot tall, 6 foot tall at times, depending on what it is. I can't put it in this little small bucket. I've got to have a large enough bucket to contain it, to hold the nutrient value for the root systems, and to let that grow and be a value to me, to make sure it doesn't tip over and it's not a problem. This is just the 4 basic types of beds to do. You can extend them with frost cloths and different things. I can tell you right now that this last bit of weather we've had, none of this would have protected you. Nothing did. At the farm, at my demonstration farm, we lost all the tomato transplants, but we already had another set built for this and built in place as contingency. Cover with plastic, cover with row cloth, insect barrier. These are good non-chemical ways to actually extend the season or to actually protect it. You got them in the nursery center. Tim and the group can help you with this if you want to extend it with this kind of application. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that's a part that we can extend the season. Irrigations or irrigation systems. Sucker hose systems work okay. They kind of disintegrate. We use drip irrigation. It can be battery operated, electric controlled systems. We have a solar system in a vineyard. I have a vineyard in Rowlett or in Garland, and we have a solar system there. This is drip irrigation, where you just basically every foot you've got an emitter that when the water pressure builds, the emitters slowly drip water into the soil. I'm not watering the pathways. I'm not watering the streets. I'm not watering anywhere but the ground. 5 minutes of irrigation water will saturate this whole bed. I'm saving water. I'm watering the root systems exactly where the water needs to be. And I'm being a steward for water conservation because I'm not wasting water. And I don't want weeds in here. You see them. This is my bed at home. I always have pathways around the bed. I had to put this around it because I've got chickens. My babies will walk across the yard. Of course, they're going to help Papa get all his lettuces and stuff out of there by taking a bite out of every one of them. So I tried a sign. It didn't work, so I had to build a fence for chickens because they didn't read the sign. This is this is drip irrigation at its best. And look into the drip irrigation. Again, the team can help you with the drip irrigation or with any kind of irrigation systems. There are these are more for me vacation applications. So I'm going on a week trip. This is a gallon per hour nipple you can put on a 2 liter. I know there's got different sizes of these nipples now that you can actually put into your pots, your container gardens. I would absolutely still have a neighbor looking on my pots and stuff, regardless, because if this thing, I don't know how well these work as far as just if they drip all the water out in 1 or 2 days, what they're going to do. They're supposed to be a gallon per hour or a half gallon per hour, but if something happens and all of a sudden all the water drips out and runs through, these are going to dry out. You're going to lose have them there. One thing about irrigation, I'm going to do a blanket statement about irrigation and irrigating all your irrigation systems. Irrigation systems have no brain. You are the brain of the irrigation system. You need to control it. None of the systems I ever used are on a clock that says water Tuesday at 2 o'clock every Tuesday. That's not the way we water. That's not the way we irrigate. We irrigate with the environmental conditions. You wouldn't have had to irrigate this last 3 or 4 weeks because of all the rain we've gotten and such. You turn your irrigation systems off, you water as needed, you use these as a tool, but this is not a brain system, so be careful with this. Oya pots are another way, one quick one. Oyas, this is an Oya pot, it's a really low fired clay, and you'll bury it into the soil. There's the top of it. You'll fill it with water, put a top on it, bury it into the clay, let it work into the soils like this. One thing I've got to tell you is they don't last a long time. This particular one, I know there's better ones. This is a typical clay one, but there's one they're making them now that will drip water a little faster, or I'm sorry, a little slower, that will last a few more days, but they don't last very long in the ground. They tend to break apart in the ground, and if it's broken in the ground, you're just watering in there. It's not going to do the system you're going to do. They're not bad. I mean, they do work. In schools, we use 1 gallon milk jugs and poke small holes in milk jugs to make it work, but you're still going to have to go fill them up. So I'm thinking if I'm going to go fill the bed up anyway, I'll probably have enough time to water with it. Trying to see if that works your system, but I just wanted to show you some different water methods. In the Metroplex, we do have 2 growing seasons. We have an early spring season, which is going to start soon, where you can plant all your fruit. You'll plant most of your fruiting plants, which would be your tomatoes, your peppers, your melons, things like that. You're going to harvest those coming into late summer. And then you're going to come back in late summer after you've harvested for a fall plant. And then you can plant late summer and you'll harvest winter, which will be mainly greens, broccoli, your fruit, your flowering stuff. This is succession planting, which I have at the bottom. This is the early broccoli. This is from years back where I'll put it, this is cauliflower. I started cauliflower early in the season into January. By the time the cauliflower, these cages are in place and you'll see tomatoes growing through them. This is succession planting because I know once these cauliflower heads are done, I'm going to cut it and I'm going to put this in compost. Actually, I'm going to feed this to the chickens, but I'll cut these out, pull the plants. I don't ever pull plants. I always cut these off at the bottom. I cut them off at the stem to leave the root systems in place. If I leave the root systems in place, as long as it's not diseased, what it'll do, it'll break down and keep feeding microbes into the soil. It'll save me fertilizations because it's very nutritious rich. The root systems of all of our plants are nutrition rich and still have the ability to break down in the soil and keep water channels open. So I cut them off, let the tomatoes grow through. That's succession planting. You can plant here almost all year round if you just plant properly and correctly. And if you're using a tunnel, you can plant through winter and actually have some winter vegetables. Again, excluding a 0-degree temperature, which nothing we could have done for that one. Warm season typically are the ones that we eat that are the ovary of the plant, which have seeds in them. The difference between a fruit and a vegetable is fruits have seeds in them, vegetables do not. Vegetables, we eat the root, the stems, the leaves, and the flowers, the vegetative parts, and generally for the most part for all of our fruit plants, we'll eat the reproductive part, which is the ovary, the tomato, the pepper, such like that, succession planting. When you're in the stores, this is a couple of health checks here to look at. Check the root systems. If you're getting these nice 6-packs or 4-inch, pull it out. A good root system should look like cooked spaghetti. You see how nice that is and how it has a creamy color and it's a vibrant color. It's alive. It looks good. It's soft to the touch. That's what you want to look for. And if I'm looking for a 6-pack or a 4-inch or a quart, whatever size you're looking at, I want to get a shorter, stockier plant. I don't want one particularly tall. If I ended up with tall tomatoes, you can plant tomatoes deeply because you can see along the stem right here, those are root initials. I would take this plant, actually this 6-pack plant, I would plant him right there, all the way up to where the leaves are. Now, this is tomatoes, eggplant, and peppers to a point. Now, peppers typically are longer, they're lower stemmed, but tomatoes for sure, plant them deeper, and this will build a root system out of this. All these little white hairs will be roots. That's where roots will initiate and grow. Plant them deeply. But I want a short, stocky plant. I don't want any flowers on it, and I don't want any fruit on it when I plant it. Fruiting is an end result of that plant. It's already gone through all these processes to make a fruit, and I don't want that. I want something that's going to fresh and vibrant. And these are going to grow quicker. They're going to take off quicker, establish quicker. Keep them watered. Keep them fertilized when you start fertilizations, and basically you'll get a good plant start on those. Organic blends. This is typically what you're going to buy. I'm not talking about brand. Don't look at the brands. Look at what it is. This is an organic fertilizer. Organic fertilizers will carry a very low value of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. They're going to carry low values because they're natural processes. They're not going to have as much as synthetics in there. So what I do is when I'm coming in for fruit and leafy vegetables, I'm going to add a kick of blood meal to this. I'm going to take 1 bag, mix them together in a bucket. So I take 1 bag of this, 1 bag of this. That's going to kick me up to 13% nitrogen. So it's going to give me a 1763 value, which is a good value to be my fertilization plant. 6 applications. I'm going to apply a cup, about a quarter of a cup, when I plant the little transplant in there of this fertilization, because this is not going to burn it with organic. And then about every 3-week intervals for about 6 applications, I'm going to do another quarter cup at the plant level. I'm not going to broadcast it across the bed. I'm going to stay underneath the plant where the plant root system is. And that's only 6 applications. It's an 18-week process, but it's very small applications, 1 quarter cup per plant. So I'm not putting a whole lot of fertilizer out there, but I need to keep nutrients valued out there. I need to keep higher nutrients. If I just put this in, I wouldn't have enough nitrogen to maintain the green growth I want to maintain. It would be okay and it'd be fine, but this is what I've been researching this for years. So this is a good for organic. So if I'm doing an organic blend, I'm going to mix a bag in a bag. Okay. We can do synthetic. If you want to do synthetic, that's fine too. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. This is root and stem crops. So if I'm doing, that was for fruit and vegetables. This is for, say I'm doing carrots, beets, anything that's going to grow below ground, anything that I'm going to eat the stem of, like an onion. Then I'm going to do a more balanced mix. So I'm going to try to keep it a little more balanced across 4-6-3, and I'm probably kick on to 6-7-0, something like that as a mix, because I want to keep a balanced blend would be 13-13-13, 11-11-11, something like that. That's for the stems, the roots, and the anything that's going to grow below ground. That's the fertilization I want, because I want to keep those growing in a balanced way, because I want the top balance to match the root balance, because I'm going to be eating root. Potatoes, things like that. This would be good. Synthetic blends. If you're going to go synthetic, that's fine. I don't go against synthetic. I don't use synthetics myself, but if I do, this is as simple as it's going to be, because when we take and we crush a fruit plant, we crush a tomato plant up, and we go and we look at what is the value of each of the major nutrients, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the 3 major ones that you see on the bag. What is the value? The value in every plant in the system, in our floral system, is 3-2-1, or I'm sorry, 3-1-2. 3-1-2. It's going to have 3% nitrogen, 1% phosphorus, 2% of potassium. So this is 15-5-10 is 3-1-2. That's what developed years ago for turf. It's a turf fertilizer. It works perfectly fine in our vegetable garden, in all of our beds, our landscape beds. It's easy to get. You go to the nursery, pick it up, as long as it does not have a herbicide in it. It cannot be mixed with a weed killer. It cannot be mixed with an insecticide. It's just got to be turf fertilizer, basic turf fertilizer. Cross it. Our vegetable specialist at Texas A&M uses this. We all use this. It's synthetic when we're testing against synthetics. So this is easy enough to do. And you're going to have this for your yard anyway. Just make sure no herbicide and no insecticide in this. I don't want insecticides in my vegetable plants, especially if they're going to be systemic. And here's for root systems. That's what I talked about, balance. 13-13-13. Onions, potatoes, beets, carrots, anything that's going to grow around. That's my application. Again, 6 applications. Quarter cup when I plant, and then every 3 weeks I'm going to put another quarter cup there just to keep it balanced and keep it rolling. Pest issues, you're going to have some pest issues coming up. You have disease, bacterial, fungal issues. Some we're not worried about. Some you need to really go to your nursery, go to the nursery, go to Tim, go to his group, and see if it's something that we're going to have to actually treat. There's certain thresholds we can live with. If I have something eating my okra leaf, and I've got some holes in my okra leaf, I don't care. As long as it's not taking a percentage of okra leaf off, I'm not eating the leaf anyway. I'm eating the okra itself. So it's not going to be something I have to worry about. I don't want you poisoning the environment just to kill a bug, just to kill an insect, or just to try to kill a disease that you think is a disease. This is not a disease. This is bird damage. That's bird peck, which you're going to get in tomatoes. The birds are sitting there around your garden waiting for them to change color. And as soon as they change color to what they want, they're going to come peck them before you get them. So what you want to do to this, and the best way to beat this, if you have issues with bird damage, you're not going to treat it with anything. There's nothing you can treat it with. What you're going to do is you're going to pull them pink. You're going to pull them when they start going to flush. You know, it'll flush from the bottom up, and when about halfway up, it's starting to get pink. You're going to pull it off. You're going to take it in the house. You're going to put it on the counter. You're going to let it ripen on the counter and let it finish there. Always pull a tomato. Always pull a fruit. with the stem part left on it. So cut it at the stem. Leave a little bit of that stem left over, so whatever's left in the stem, because there's some storage area right above the stem. Whatever sugar would be stored there is going to drop back into this as this breaks off. So, but let them finish off in your house. This is not something to treat. Know if it's treatable and know if it's not treatable. It's called an IPM threshold. And I can't get into that. That's a long course, but sometimes we need to treat them, sometimes we don't. Plants, you can have diseases that collapse root systems. You can have spots on the leaves, decaying fruit. This is blossom end rot. This is nutrition deficiency. This isn't a particular disease that's happened. This means that the calcium has not been available to the plant through the plants when the plant needed it. So what's happened here is there's been a water issue more than likely. Either it dried out or it had too much water. Too much water will also flush out nutrients and where the plant can't absorb the nutrients. So if I'm putting too much water on it, it's not getting the calcium it needed. If I let it go dry, then it's certainly not going to get the calcium it needed on constant supply. So that's what happens. This is not a disease. This is nothing you could treat. You have to change your cultural practices to make sure you have a consistent water system that you water. Holes in fruit, holes in leaves could be different things. Missing fruit could be bigger animals, could be two-legged animals a lot of times, and missing fruits. It's taking those. You got to recognize, it can be recognized by damage to plant root systems. Sometimes the root systems, we got dampening and different types of fungal diseases that will actually break down. Fungal diseases, this is early blight in tomatoes. And this is what we all get in tomatoes, because tomatoes, the bulk of the growing season is going to be with high humidity and heat. You can always start getting this. If you get your tomatoes to a certain size, this will do nothing for the tomato quality, and we don't treat it. We just clean the leaves off. It doesn't affect them. You clean them off. You don't treat them because you don't need to treat that. Certain other diseases you'll need to treat. So go to Tim, go to his group. They're professionals. They will help you diagnose what it is. But you got to know what the correct diagnosis is before you treat these, or you're not going to do any kind of value to your plants at all. And you're going to be polluting the environment, which we don't want you to do. There's multiple pest issues, because a lot of things like your fruit and vegetables, and you'll run across them if you're doing it. Just don't get discouraged. Just go to your professional. Let them help you out through it. We got two good resources here. I know Tim does too, with the Shades of Green with their resources here. But Aggie Horticulture Vegetable Gardening, if you just Google that, it'll take you through all the vegetables you'll ever want to know about in your region, and it'll help you with fertilization charts and all that. And it'll also help you with varietal charts. Varieties are extremely important in vegetables, for tomatoes especially, because we have 2 seasons of growing, but it's 2 short seasons. So if I put in an 80-day tomato or an 85-day tomato, I might not get all the tomatoes I would get if I put in a 40-day to maturity tomato or a 50-day maturity tomato. So varietal choices are very important. So look at the varietal choices. We always want short maturing varieties. Early girls, 49 days is about as short as it gets with a good production. But there's lots of great varieties. Celebrity is one of the best ones as far as being disease resistant, and has a lot of resistance to different types of diseases and different types of issues it could have. It's a 70-day tomato, but makes a really nice tomato. Lots of good varieties out there for us. 2 resources to go with. You can go with Tim and the group out there, Shades of Green also. That's basically it. That's where we're going to end it with on that one. So got any questions, Tim, or anything?
No, that was excellent information, very thorough. I would encourage any new gardeners out there. The reason we're putting this out on video is so you can watch this as many times as you need to. You can pause, you can rewind, take notes. I've always tell new gardeners that gardening in Texas is not for the faint of heart, but it can be done. My grandfather taught me, and it is a learnable skill, but there's a lot to learn. And that's why I want to bring in experts like Jeff here. And of course, we have a wonderful, knowledgeable staff here. In addition to these links that we've got here, I will put some for the Collin County Master Gardeners, and I've got several links to the AgriLife Extension Service. They have all kinds of wonderful literature and PDF files that you can download on one for almost every vegetable that you would probably ever plant in your garden. So if you want more specific information on a certain vegetable, it's there. And I'll put those links in the description below this video if you've got any, if you're looking for some additional research. And of course, you can always come see us here at Shades of Green. Thank you, Jeff. That was wonderful information, and we're really glad you took time to talk to us. I'm Tim with Shades of Green Nursery and Landscape, and this has been the Shades of Green Show.